I remember going up to, every year when we were kids, we'd take the Hudson River Day Line to go up to Kingston for a month and a half, and we had fun up there. I even remember the Governor Clinton Hotel. Right across the street was a pool, and my brothers and I, they used to take us up there to go swimming when we were kids. I think I was 5 years old at the time. And I could tell you a lot about the fun we had up there in Kingston. You know, it was very hot here in the city, in New York, but when we got to Kingston, it was twice as hot because of the bakery oven going and all that. And I remember as a kid punching the dough in the machines there. I could tell you about the back of the upstairs over the bakery was a hayloft at one time. When my grandfather moved there, they had horses delivering, horse and wagon delivering the bread. And I know they had the horses out where the garage is now. That's where the horses stayed overnight. I remember the big oven they had downstairs. My Uncle Willie, I remember, used to put the wood in there first and the coal before they got gas going in for the baking.
So I've been interested in local history, and every time somebody would ask me a question, if I couldn't answer it, I had to go look it up. And I fortunately have a pretty good memory, and I can remember pretty well what it is. I was just thinking of an incident last night. I had the Senate House had a meeting about 20 years ago, I guess, and upstairs in the Senate House, in the museum part upstairs, and so Rich Goring, who was in charge at that time, he said, everybody take a number, and when we came in, we took a number, and he said, we're going to have a door prize. And so all of a sudden they call it a number, and I looked and I had it. So he said, well, whoever can answer this question will get this free book that we have here, whatever it was. And so everybody's laughing because of the Rosardi, the historian. And so I went up and he said, all right, can you tell me the names of the two fire horses that the Weiner Hose Company had back in the 1800s? I said, yeah, Dick and Ike. And everybody laughs like crazy. Who on earth would know that? Who on earth would delve into history so far that they knew what the horses' names were?
Yeah.
I had learned it. I remembered it somehow. And so that was it. And I just got thinking of that last night. It was kind of funny.
Thriving area.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, Kingston was 29,000 people at one time, and people worked.
Yeah.
And they worked in places who today would be looked upon, oh wow, she works in a garment, that's a sweatshop. But no, they made fairly decent salaries for the time, and maybe they weren't getting rich on it, but they were raising families, they were building houses, they were renting houses, the community was busy, businesses were busy. My own mother worked, she was a waste maker, they call them, top part of the, because everything was assembled in rotation. And there was cigar factories, pajama factory, blouse factories, sweater factories, colonial knitwear in the early 40s, and was one of the largest sweater manufacturers in the country.
When my grandmother saw that her husband, my grandfather, was pulling a cart like an animal, she was so upset. And some money that had been given to her by her uncle to buy a house, she used it to buy a horse, so that my grandfather wouldn't have to pull a cart like an animal. And they came here. And like, this is the story of many Jewish immigrants. They came here and they worked for a better life. But he spent most of his time davening. And she raised chickens to supplement the family income while my grandfather peddled with his horse. And my father was her oldest child, and more children came along as she was born, as they lived here. And he would sometimes go with my grandfather to peddle. And he would tell me about sleeping under the wagon, and sometimes they would eat eggs by putting a nail in it on the top and through the top and the bottom, and suck the egg out, which I didn't particularly like eggs in those days, and that furthered my dislike. And he told me about going across I don't know how they went across the river. There was no bridge. They went on the ferry probably in the summertime, and some of the names of the roads over there, and describing Astor Flats, which was owned by John Jacob Astor, I think, over there.